Hello, everyone, and welcome to another video here on the Sports Daily Media Network YouTube channel. I'm your host, Sean Vowells. I've got Joe Meade with me, and tonight we are updating our college football playoff predictions. We're still operating as if this is a projection for the end of the year, not going on current resumes just yet. When the first playoff reveal is in the beginning of November, that is when we will switch over to current resumes. But let's get it started, Joe. I'm pretty sure it's obvious who the number one and the number two teams are, and they're both from the Big Ten, but you can start.
Well, the number one team is certainly for the Big Ten. That's the Ohio State Buckeyes. The number two team is not now.
Really? Who's your number two then? Because I've also got Ohio State first.
I got Roll Tide Roll. I think ever since that Florida State debacle, and frankly a fluke because they're going to be out of a coach pretty soon, if not already by the time this is released.
Yeah.
Uh, Give me the Alabama Crimson Tide at number two. I think they win the SEC. I think they might run the table. I really don't think Georgia or Ole Miss can get them in the title game. So give me a Roll Tide Roll.
I have got Alabama third. Joe, I think I agree. I think they're a step ahead of the rest of the SEC. They do have a couple tough games coming up, but they went on the road. They beat Georgia. They took care of business against Vanderbilt. Like, they are the class of the conference, in my opinion. I have them third. Let's go to the Big 12, Joe. A little bit of a shakeup there this week with Texas Tech losing. Are they still your champion? Because they still are mine, and they'll be going to number 9.
They are still my champion, but they will be going to number 11.
All right, so the Red Raiders, they were without their quarterback. If Texas Tech is the Big 12 champion, I think they might get a bump based on that because their starter is supposed to come back. But they did lose to Arizona State, so a little bit of a bump for them. This probably does remove their room for error. They probably will not get in as an at-large now, but they're still the best team in the Big 12, in my opinion. All right, Joe, we've got the ACC up next. Their champion, or their presumed champion, Miami, also lost this week on Friday night to Louisville. Are they still your champion? And if not, who is?
Miami is still my champion. I still think they have enough talent to run the course of the schedule and win the ACC title game, which I assume will be against Georgia Tech. So I got Miami in seventh.
Yep, I also have them there as well. Um, I think Louisville's a pretty good team. They just lost. I don't know if Carson Beck will play that bad again, but I think they're just now. I think Georgia Tech also, Joe. I do have them in at number 11. Let's finish off the ACC. Do you have them in?
I have them in at number nine.
Okay, so Georgia Tech is a team that has sort of barely been winning against a couple of teams they probably should have beaten by more, but at the end of the day, they're getting the job done. So Georgia Tech 11 for me and ninth for Joe. All right, let's finish off our champions, Joe. Group of 5. We had a big shakeup there this week with UAB, with their interim head coach beating Memphis, which does, well, all these teams at the top of the American are playing each other, so somebody's going to have to lose eventually, but this was the first major upset in the American. Memphis was your champion. Are you going to be keeping them? Are you going to be staying in the American, or are you be going to a different conference for this group of 5 winner?
I'll be staying in the American to the most American team. No offense to Army or Air Force, and that's the Naval Academy. Give me the midshipmen. I love Blake Horvath. I hope he does get invited to New York. I think it would be very good for college football. I think the guys earned it. And should they give Notre Dame a game? Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
It's very possible.
They do have. I honestly think that game is sort of house money for them, Joe, because they played these other American teams, and if they do well enough against them to make it to the American Championship game, I think they're in if they win it. But Memphis losing, I think, does actually hurt Navy because Navy plays Memphis, and there's a way that the tiebreakers won't help them. But I am actually going to be leaving the American. I had Navy last week. I think there's still a good chance that they win the American. But I will be leaving the American for my group of 5 winner. And I will be going to the old home of my current head coach, Kurt Signetti. I'm going to go with James Madison. They're destroying some good teams in the Sun Belt. Their only loss was to Louisville, a team that beat Miami, who's in the playoff. James Madison beat Old Dominion by 25. Old Dominion is the second best team in that league. So give me the Dukes of James Madison going to the college football playoff. All right, Joe, we've got some at-large bids to fill in now. A ton of teams from the SEC, from the Big Ten. Let's fill it out with the Big Ten first. The aforementioned Indiana Hoosiers. Where do you have them?
I have them in third. To me, they did nothing wrong. I just think Bama, hypothetically, how I put this is Bama at the end of the year will have a way better resume than Indiana based on the ranked wins.
I'm going Indiana second. And I think, Joe, if the playoff were to be seeded tomorrow, I think Indiana would have a really good argument for the number one overall spot with the wins that they've had. I just don't know if they. I don't think they're as good as Ohio State. So if Indiana is 12-1 with a loss to Ohio State, I think that is depending on Alabama. If Alabama drops another game, or if you look at it from an Indiana versus Alabama point of view, both being 12-1, if Alabama runs the table, Indiana's loss being to Ohio State, Alabama's loss being to Florida State, I think Indiana might just get the edge there. All right, Joe, I'm assuming you have at least one more Big Ten team in there. I'll go first on this one. How about Oregon? For me, is still in. They bounced back well from the home loss to Indiana. Their only tough game remaining really is Washington and at Iowa. I've got them fifth. I still think they're in.
In the most shocking move of all time, I'm going to double down on my Washington take. I have Washington Huskies in 10th. I think they win out. I think they beat Oregon and eliminate Oregon from the college football playoff. Give me the Huskies.
So Washington in, Oregon out.
Yep.
Wow.
It's a scorching hot take.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Washington wins that game and Oregon doesn't, who knows? But is that it for Big Ten for you?
That is it for the Big Ten for me.
Okay. All right, so the rest of the way is going to be filled with SEC teams or teams that do not have a conference. And let's start with that team from South Bend, Joe. Notre Dame is now 5-2. They've won 5 in a row. They do not have another ranked team on their schedule this year. They do have Navy left. That is probably their toughest game. Do you have the Fighting Irish in your top 12?
I do.
Okay.
They appear for the first time in my top 12. I have them at 6th. I think there's going to be a lot of cannibalization, college football-wise, happening around the country. Hopefully not the real one, not ever. But in college football, there will be a lot of it. I think Notre Dame will benefit. I think that USC win will age well, as will a potential win over the Naval Academy.
I've got Notre Dame at 8th, Joe. I just think they are really just... it's unfortunate that their two toughest games of the season are going to be their first two, because with their current running attack, I think they're better than... Like, Miami, they lost 2 by 3. They're right there with them. And then with Texas A&M, who's not yet been mentioned, they lost by 1 to them. Like, they easily could be undefeated and number 3 in the country. But for me, I think I've got them 8th, and I think they're a real dangerous team if once they get into the playoff, because they're going to be rolling going in. All right, Joe, we've got the Southeastern Conference left. We have both got 3 spots. Let's start off with the Aggies from Texas A&M. I'm assuming they're in your top 12. They are 7-0, Marcel Reed, and the Aggies have looked pretty good so far. They had a real scary one against Arkansas this past weekend, but they get the job done. And they're 7-0. No, out. Okay.
Out.
They're going to be.
I'm out on them.
They're going to be 4th for me. I just think that they have now built themselves a little bit of a cushion where when they inevitably do take a loss or 2, I think they're still in. All right, down the SEC we go, Joe, to Georgia. The Georgia Bulldogs, just 1 loss on the year, an impressive win against Tennessee. Do you have the Georgia Bulldogs in?
I have Georgia in as my 4th team, and just to answer the A&M question, because everyone's going to destroy me in the comments, I think they lose to LSU, Texas, and to Missouri, because I think those are 3 very, very tough road games. Yeah. And I think they're still a great team, and Elko is still a hell of a coach. I just think that's the backloaded schedule that's going to come back to bite them.
Well, certainly if they go 9-3, they won't be in. Um, but Georgia fourth, they will be sixth for me. For Georgia, I think they're still a pretty good team. I think Gunnar Stockton, um, is probably the best person not in the Heisman race right now. In terms, Simpson, Mendoza, Sayin, Jeremiah Love. I think Stockton is having a pretty good season, and I'm not sure that they're going to lose more than one more game. So sixth for me. All right, two more spots for you, Joe. One more spot for me. So why don't you fill in one of your spots?
In eighth, shot it, I believe. Oh, sorry. Let's do fifth. In fifth,
Yep.
I have Ole Miss. I think their schedule will age very well. I also think that after this contest against Oklahoma, their schedule opens up. So I kind of feel, believe it or not, even though they're just coming off a loss, they'll have no margin for error if they lose to Oklahoma. But I don't see them losing any of their last 4 or 5 games.
I do not have the Rebs in. I just think they are leaving themselves open to be snake bit one of these times, like they did last week. They outplayed their opponents for majority of the game, and they end up losing. Um, just seems to me that sort of happens every year for them. So Ole Miss is out for me. All right, the eighth spot is left for you, Joe. The 10th spot is left for me. I have got Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt in the 10th spot. They have one loss on the year. It was a close game against Alabama. They got the job done this past weekend. I have Vanderbilt in 10th, and by your reaction, I'm guessing you've got somebody different.
I'm going to double down on Oklahoma. I think their schedule is very tough, but that might work out in their favor. I think at 10-2, they will be the eighth seed. I think if your two losses are to, which what I still think is a pretty good Texas team. I'm not going to put them back in because I do believe they'll lose at Georgia. They play Missouri, they play LSU, and they have Ole Miss, but they have those teams at home. And I think their one game they'll lose the rest of the year is at Alabama, who could still very likely be the number one overall seed. So, I think the season's still wide open for Oklahoma, but I do think they got to win. These next games are tough. At Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Bama, Missouri, and LSU. I bet them to go forward one of those games. I think it's a bold take, but if they do, I think they could even be an even higher seed.
Yeah, the SEC is clearly what's going to surprise people here. We've obviously got a little bit of a different idea of what's going to happen, but there are probably 7 teams in the SEC, maybe 8, that still think they can make the playoff. Tennessee's not in either of ours. They could still make it. Missouri is not in either of ours. They could still make it. Um, and you've got Arkansas and Kentucky and some of the bad teams in this league still showing up and giving their teams a fight. Kentucky took Texas to overtime. Texas is not in here, so a lot could still happen in the SEC. But that is all we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.